listening to Strathmore's Who's Who online radio with your host, Scott Stone.
Hello, this is Scott Stone, Executive Vice President of Two Brothers Worldwide Publishing, and your host for today's episode of Strathmore Online Radio. I do not usually host this program these days, as many of you know. However, I was lured back into this chair when I heard that one of my absolute favorite clients of ours was going to be appearing. This woman has become a dear, dear friend of mine as well in the relatively short time we've known each other, which is probably about a year, or maybe just a hair under a year. She is personable, she is funny, she's compassionate, and so much more, which you'll find out over the course of the next hour or so. This is a bit of an unusual situation as well, because this woman is essentially doing the program on behalf of her late husband, Dr. Andrew Batsis, official Strathmore's Who's Who and America's Registry member of the Memorial Variety. Interestingly enough, none of us on this end ever had the opportunity to meet or speak with Andy in this life. Everything that we learned about Andy was through his reputation in the industry, through his organizations, and so on, but especially through his wife, her words, and her wonderful writing about this great man. And that, I feel, speaks volumes, no pun intended, about her manuscript and her story that she's told and that she's promoting here. So without further ado, I want to formally welcome today's guest, Katherine Batsis. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very warmly felt.
It's wonderful to have you here, and I'm so thrilled that you're excited to be here. I feel like this show has really been a long time coming. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. It just seemed like such a natural progression with all of the positive things that have happened lately. But firstly, let me just say it's so amazing what you've done for Dr. Batsis over the last year or so. The biographies online and in print, the manuscript you authored and revised time and time again, especially the upcoming website, www.drandrewbatsis.com, where there will be a video tribute to the man himself and his great life of accomplishment. And then, of course, there's the Times Square appearance, when Andy's image and information appeared in quite literally one of the busiest areas in the world, if not the busiest, on that key skyscraper in New York City, which, of course, our listeners can view very, very easily by going to drandrewbatsis.com, and then of course the press releases that surrounded the event itself. My goodness, it's been a very, very busy few months, hasn't it?
Certainly has.
Exciting, I'm sure. Well, we are going to discuss nearly all of those things before this show is finished. Our listeners can bet on that. And I think we're in for a pretty wonderful program here today as far as Strathmore Online Radio goes. The first thing I want to do is introduce the book that you've written, Kathy, about Dr. Andrew Batsis, who we may be referring to as Andy periodically going forward, just so the listeners are clear on that. The book itself is called Dr. Andrew Batsis, with the subtitle, Husband, Dentist, Kiwanian, Santa Claus. And if you see the cover, or even just this gentleman's member photo on any of the websites, you'll know why it's called that. He's very, very jolly looking. He has the white beard, and he does resemble Santa Claus very much. And I seem to remember a very amusing anecdote about that, with a child confronting him, asking if he was Santa Claus. Would you mind sharing that quickly?
Sure. They usually whispered to their parents, "I see Santa Claus." And so Andy would go to them, and he would smile, and he would nod his head, shake his head, no, and yes, and no, until the child started smiling or laughing, and they felt very comfortable with him.
Yeah, I bet they did. And Well, the book itself is just so wonderful, and it's not every day that one sees such a beautiful tribute from a wife to a husband in any capacity, and especially in writing, and that's coming from me in the publishing industry. So I can say this is a sweet, heartfelt biography about a wonderful man. Naturally, we're going to spend a substantial portion of today's show reading passages from the book, but before we even get into that, I just want to open with a few questions, Kathy, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First of all, where did you get the idea for this book?
Well, in May 29th, 2005, we had a memorial tribute for my husband's passing of 40 days. And in that tribute, there were a number of people who said they were thankful that I, the wife, shared my husband Andy with them. And they also told me, not just personally, not just in the memorial tribute. So I thought, well, then we have a DVD of it. A very dear friend had videotaped and then made the videotape into a DVD.
Right.
And I said, wouldn't that be nice to have that transcribed into print? And from there, I could write my own personal reflections, and that should make a book, and I can share him some more.
Wonderful.
And that's where I got the idea to do it.
Well, it was a great idea, and thank goodness you did get the idea, because it turned into, honestly, one of the best things that I've read in a long, long time. Just an engaging read from start to finish. And I'm also wondering, how did you know that you could write this book?
Well, I wasn't sure at first, but I thought the memorial tribute in print would be half the book, and then I started asking myself questions. And as long as I could answer those questions, things would come to me. I also had encouragement from my brother and sister-in-law and the family, and also from the woman who transcribed the DVD, and also my therapist. And I think with so many people being encouraging to me, that also helped me to think that I could do it.
Right, of course. Well, that makes sense. And when did you begin the book?
It's the spring of 2009.
Okay, and then you completed it when?
2015 in the spring.
In the spring, okay. And since that time of completion in spring 2015, were there any additions that you made?
I added a glossary because every once in a while we put down Kumbato George, and some people might have thought that Kumbato was his first name and George was his last name. So we put down that Kumbato is a title used for either the godfather of a child or the best man of a couple. And
right.
George was the best man at our wedding.
Ah, okay, of course.
So we added the appendices A through F. Would you like me to mention those?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, Appendix A is the short descriptions of Andy from condolence cards in 2005. Appendix B are recipes, and baklava is the one that most people like to look up.
Right.
Appendix C is photographs. Appendix D is about Mom Batsis and Kathy Batsis, that's
right.
me. We're big influences on Andy. And Appendix E, we have newspaper articles, 2 of them. And Appendix F is the music that's listed in our life.
Ah, okay. And I noticed that throughout the book there were some very, very interesting songs that factored into your lives so heavily, not the least of which was Moon River from Breakfast at Tiffany's. I know that was your wedding song, if I'm not mistaken.
To hear more of the Katherine Batsis episode of Strathmore Online Radio, please visit www.strathmore-ltd.com.